tradition and history is very rich in the fire service. It's very important to understand where we've come from, to understand where we're going. Not only is it the history and tradition of the department, but it's also history for the city.
I remember being a little girl sitting at my parents' dinner table, and I would hear the fire alarm go off, and the fire alarm was located over on Macklemore Street in the old City Hall. And I remember sitting at the dinner table and hearing that fire alarm go off, and I remember seeing my father just immediately jump up and he would run out the door because he was one of the volunteer firemen. And of course, we were all concerned when we heard the fire alarm go off because it meant somebody in our city was in trouble.
Anytime a fire occurred or an emergency, they would ring the bell on the fire tower, on the water tower, right next to the fire hall, and anybody who was available who could and wanted to would come and help. No fire department per se. And when I started with that was the circumstance.
When they got this truck, it was the community was a farming community. There was not an organized fire department. It was neighbors helping neighbors. So when the call came in that there was a fire at Mrs. Smith's house, somebody would pick the truck up and go to Mrs. Smith's house, and usually the neighbors would start calling each other, and it was just a big phone tree, and they would get as many people there as possible to help put out the fire.
I think the most volunteers we ever had while I was involved was in the 20s, 20, 25, somewhere in that category. We had a small town. When I moved here, we had about 300 people inside the city limits, and I moved here in 1960. And basically all of my positions, and I've had a few more with the city, were people people didn't want them, and I was willing to do it, and because nobody else would, and that's how I got involved a lot of times. Nothing of an honorary type thing, but something of duty, something to do to help the community.
Where the Tennessee Children's Home is now located, there was the old Branham and Hughes Military Academy, and the Branham and Hughes Alumni Hall caught fire and burned and had to be rebuilt. So that was an initial fire loss. That was in the early 20s, as I recall. Also, the Dr. George Peters house, which was built in 1830 and played a very significant part in the Civil War, that old home was lost to fire. Additionally, a large section of the right-hand side of Main Street in Spring Hill, going north on Main Street, was lost to fire back in the 1930s. We have lost many, many historic buildings to fires in our city. And when a fire takes out a historic building, it's wiping out history.
This was purchased at a time when most cities, especially our size, didn't own anything like this. They relied on neighboring towns or bigger cities that were nearby. For them to purchase something like this at the time was a big deal.
Belle has been a staple in our city's fleet of vehicles for many, many years. She's a strong foundation, a good starting point for us, something that all of us can look towards with respect and honor for the job that she's served and the time that she's given to our city.
Anything that's been important to the community over the years and something else has come in and taken its place, it's awfully easy for the community, especially people moving in new, to not know a thing about it and never talked about and never important. But to the people who've been here a long time and remember how important it has been and used in community service, all of them would be glad definitely to see it honored and made public and kept where the younger people can see and appreciate So many of our young people today are not familiar with the history of where they live, what's important, necessarily was important, what led up to the community being what it is today. And this old truck had a part in that, and filled a hole as best it could, under the circumstances. And the people who were associated with it have tremendous pride.
I would say to someone that just moved to the area that doesn't really understand or know about the Fire Belle project, donating time or money to this project is going towards the future of the city. As a department, we'll be able to use this tool to help educate our children, our senior adults, and every other opportunity that we can.
I felt really good that somebody's willing to go back into history and have something that the city could be proud of. Even today, that truck's been there and done that in a lot of situations, and like a lot of people who worked with that truck. And it's something you can be proud, the community can be proud of.
It immediately resonated with me as a way for our past to connect with our present and our kids to connect with our senior adults and be able to bridge the gap and use it as a tool to unite our city and to help the children learn and see things from a different perspective.
We still need to anchor our city's children in a sense of, this is my hometown, this is where I'm from, and this is what we're about. And that is one of the reasons I have wanted to see Fire Belle restored, because she was very much an anchor of my heart.
It's played a part in the history of Spring Hill the last 50 years, thereabouts.
The first thing that I think we need to do is create the awareness. We need to let the city know that she exists, that we're going to work together to try to restore her and get her back on the road, and use her to help teach our kids about fire safety and about community and all of those wonderful things that make life even more wonderful than it already is, that tie us together and give us a sense of home and a sense of place.
It's a chance for the people to get together and work together to accomplish something. And that's important. I don't care what the community is or what size it is. And our young people today could use that as an example.
Project Fire Belle is completely a grassroots effort from Spring Hill, from Spring Hillians, just like the people that got together initially, the businesses that got together and decided we need a fire truck for our city.
But I want to spend some time in our schools. I want to go talk with our children. I have a big heart for the kids in our community, and I want to introduce them to her personally and let them be a part of all of the processes of her along her journey as she continues to be restored and become pretty again and function again. And I want our local businesses to be aware of the project as well and help sponsor. We're going to need a lot of parts and paint and a lot of body work and labor work. And all of those things I would love to be from the people that live and work here in Spring Hill, that invest in this, because investing in this project invests in our whole city. There are all kinds of different ways to be a part of community. There's all kinds of different ways to show support. This is just one way to start a movement within our city, within its people, of binding us all together and create the family that we have always wanted here in our hometown.
We just urge people to become a sponsor, whether you're a large sponsor or a small sponsor. The part you play in helping us get Fire Belle renovated will be extraordinarily important to this project. And individuals, if you just have a love for fire safety, if you have a love for restoration of old things, if you have a love for Spring Hill's history, if you have a love for our city's children, and want them to have something that they can look to and say, I remember that fire truck.
We are where we are today, partially because of the service it's rendered in the past. It's definitely worthy of being remembered in a positive way.